Nowadays it's impossible to not know who Deadpool is, but if you've never read one of his comics before, then this is a video for you. Woof! Hey guys, it's me Marcus, aka the Mad Dog, and we're back with another video. And kicking off this list, I'm gonna go with Deadpool by Joe Kelly. It started in 1997, but by that point Deadpool had only really had a few solo miniseries. But this was the first time that he was given a run that was substantial, and the nuances and idiosyncrasies of the character were fleshed out and developed while still giving us really entertaining stories. And what's best about this is that even though it did go on for quite a number of issues, all the storylines feel quite self-contained, so you could read this in short bursts, or if you did want to do the whole thing, then that's definitely an option as well. And whether or not you're a fan of the wider Marvel universe, Joe Kelly's run would still be a great introduction to Deadpool because you still get to see him cross paths with numerous different characters like Taskmaster, the Hulk, Daredevil, and even Spider-Man in a really wacky time travel story. There's also a great balance between the sense of humour whilst also keeping the mercenary storylines really action-packed. So if you are looking just for the fundamentals of Deadpool with a really entertaining story before his popularity really began to precede him, then this would be great because you get a good number of years whilst Kelly was writing Wade. And that's without touching on the phenomenal art by Ed McGuinness. So this would be a great jumping on point, unless you're an idiot like me who picked up the complete collections which they seem to discontinue and they aren't going to finish out the run in this format. Next up, I'm going to recommend Deadpool and Cable. And I also find it a bit insulting that the omnibus only features Deadpool on the front cover, and you've even got him pretty much covering Cable's name. Like, give the guy a chance. But maybe you like the sound of a bigger Deadpool run, something that can evolve the longer that you read it. But like most people who meet me, you're concerned that his quirks can get irritating after a while. Then Cable and Deadpool would be a must read for you. It started in I think 2004, and ironically it was only made because both of their individual series were cancelled, and in 50 issues managed to turn things around to the point where you could argue that this was a series that put Wade onto the path of popularity. And it's clear to see why, because this is a balls to the wall action series, and the speed in which it bounces between story arcs will make you think that it's half as long as it actually is. Cable slots into the role as a straight guy to Wade's shtick, and the contrast between the two can often be more interesting than the story arc that's going on. With these two not having such a rich history by this point, Fabian was able to experiment and really flesh out who Wade is. It reminds me a lot of a buddy cop movie, and I keep saying that I need to go back to this, because I remember having such a good time with it when I was younger, and it really helped to build my understanding of who these characters are. This is still really accessible thanks to the omnibus being reprinted last year, and if you wanted to pick that up or any other books, then you can get them for a little bit less with the discount codes that we've got from the channel sponsor, Organic Price Books. They've got great packaging, fast shipping, and amazing customer services, and if you use code WOOF, you'll get $2 off your order. And if you're ordering 3 or more books and you want them to be delivered together, make sure you use code WOOF, ship it together for 5% off your entire order. Don't worry, you can just copy and paste them from the description down below, and you can use these codes as many times as you like. After that, I'm going to recommend Daniel Way's run. Now, Way is a creator who often gets a lot of criticism, but when it comes to his Deadpool run, I'm not going to listen to it. He knew the assignment when he started writing this book, and it's clear that he just wanted to have fun with it. I only heard about it because it was on an episode of iFanboy, and they said it was pretty much the Deadpool book for people who don't like Deadpool, and considering they completely changed my perspective of him, I have to agree. Starting out, you've got a really fun story where Wade goes after Wolverine, and then he has to deal with the fallout of Secret Invasion, and this alone is why I think it's a great run for beginners who also want to learn a bit more about the Marvel Universe. The way it includes the continuity that was going on during the late 2000s, whilst never really forgetting that this is a Deadpool story, is something that a lot of creators really struggle to do. And for as much fun as Wade can be in smaller doses or cameo appearances, this was the run that really taught me that he can be a great character in a longer form story, because here you get a good number of years with Way on Wade, and see Deadpool deal with Dark Reign and cross paths with Kingpin, the X-Men, the Hulk, and at the same time have these smaller moments where he questions his place within the universe and if immortality is really what he even wants. But maybe you just want to dip your toe into the world of Deadpool, see if you enjoy him in comic form before going into one of his solo runs. Then fortunately for you, he's been in a variety of teen books over the years, and one of the best, especially if you're not afraid of a sci-fi tone, is gonna be Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force. There aren't many books that I can think of that can pull off the wacky with the sense of juvenile whilst also knowing when to turn things serious, as well as this book does. And the best part about it is, this isn't one of those stories that becomes Deadpool featuring other characters, it is a teen book that is featuring featuring Deadpool. This ran for over 30 issues, and it does connect well with the X-Men lore, like with the Age of Apocalypse, the Otherworld, and the Brotherhood, so if you were previously an X-Men fan who's now looking to start in Deadpool, this would be a great option for you. And by having a bit of knowledge about that universe, you'll be taken on a fascinating journey that puts Deadpool front and centre alongside Wolverine, Psylocke, Angel, and Phantom X to make this really eclectic team that you wouldn't think would work as well as it does. Don't get me wrong though, they're as dysfunctional as you can imagine, which is a large part of what makes this series so great. Because what's best is that there are story arcs that make them question the morality of their decisions. So if you did want a story featuring Deadpool where it isn't just him dual wielding pistols all the time and saying look at my balls, whilst also having other characters that he can bounce off and who command as much of the limelight as Wade, then this is a must read for you. Although if we're talking team books that feature Deadpool, one of the more underrated ones that goes for an action approach rather than a sci-fi one is going to be Thunderbolts Red. Again, it's written by Daniel Way, so it's a creator who really understands who Deadpool is, but with a great supporting cast that he can work with. It's violent, tongue-in-cheek, doesn't pull any punches, and does as much for Deadpool as he does for the team. There's this constant feeling that you get from issue 1 all the way up until the end that one of them is going to betray the others, but seeing them go up against S.H.I.E.L.D., Thanos' army, Ghost Rider, and still find time to butt heads with one another is really what carries this book. I read this when it was coming out in single issues because I was a massive fan of Punisher, but Wade alongside Elektra, Red Hulk, and Agent Venom is really what made this a great team book experience. And it's a shame because it massively fell under the radar because it was coming out during that time when Deadpool was really oversaturated, so if you wanted a decent sized run that featured him alongside a bunch of equally sadistic and violent teammates, then this would definitely be the one for you, especially since the omnibus released, which I have in my collection thanks to the channel's European sponsor, Comics Bugle. They've been a massive support to this channel and they can be to you as well, because if you use code WOOFWOOF, you can get 3% off all items that aren't already in a sale, so get your orders in. But as you've probably already learnt over the last few years, saying that Deadpool is a popular character is a massive understatement. So shoving him into a book with another Marvel character was a recipe for printing money during the 2010s, and is also a recipe for success for new readers who want a shorter Deadpool story. I'm not just talking about Cable and Deadpool, but Daredevil, Punisher, Black Panther, Hawkeye, Thanos, Carnage, and pretty much any other Marvel character that you can imagine. And the good thing is they're often a one-shot or a smaller series and know how to get a big writer and artist involved, and because of that there's often a lot of action and energy because you know they don't have as long as when they're doing an ongoing series. So as long as one of the names in the title is Deadpool, this could be a good jumping on point for you if you're not a stranger to the Marvel universe anyway. And if you're watching this video because you're feeling the hype of the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, which honestly is the main reason why I'm doing this video, your boy needs views, then there's already a handful of series that you could check out, including Deadpool vs Old Man Logan, Deadpool Bad at Blood, which brought back Rob Liefeld, and there was also a series that recently launched called Deadpool and Wolverine World War 3. Although if you are wondering where you can start with Wolverine, then I've already done a video on that for you. But if you're looking for something that's dark, gritty, and not too bothered about the continuity, then Deadpool Max would be the one for you. The first run was a 12-issue series, so it's not going to take you too long to read this if you didn't want something that's going to take up your next month. And Wade becomes a really useful asset to the government, but at the same time they know that they can't really let him go loose. So he finds himself in a situation where his every decision is being guided by them, and also by his handler Bob, who cannot leave his side. The art is quite abstract, and it's got a spy espionage thriller vibe if that's the type of thing that you like. And it's great how well the pace is allowed to develop, which you don't often get with a lot of Deadpool books. But there's still a ton of signature Deadpool humour in here, and it also got a sequel series if you did want to continue with this storyline. But the fundamentals of Deadpool's character, and the way that he carries himself, and also the way that he handles his missions, and also his obsessive personality, and the quirks that we've all come to know and love, all of that is still here if you just want an introduction to the character, so that you can then feel more comfortable when you do want to read something that's set in continuity. Next up, and it's a bit of a curveball, but I'm gonna go with Deadpool Samurai. Now, as you guys might already know, I am not a manga guy. I'm an Ippo guy, but that doesn't count because this isn't really a manga, it's more like a way of life. But if you're already a manga fan that's looking to jump into comics, and Deadpool's the character that you want to bridge that gap with, then Deadpool Samurai would be perfect for you. There's only 2 volumes out so far, and it's very easy to just read these in one sitting, and you still get all the trademark idioms of Deadpool despite being in a manga format. Unless of course you want the yellow text box boxes because this book's entirely in black and white, and even Deadpool can't break that. But Iron Man recruits Deadpool for a samurai squad, so he moves to Tokyo, and the story just keeps unraveling from there. And because it isn't bound to any kind of continuity, you get to see Deadpool cross paths with Loki and Thanos, but in a setting and style that you wouldn't often get to see him in. Sure, I admit it might not be the best entry point if you are looking to get into the ongoing continuity, but as an introduction to the character, Deadpool Samurai is surprisingly faithful to Wade, and really fun at the same time. Another one I'm going to recommend is Spider-Man Deadpool. So I mentioned crossovers earlier, but they tend to only last for an issue or two, whereas this 2016 series went on for 50 issues and had a plethora of writers and artists working on it. Because personally, I only read the issues that were done by Joe Kelly and Ed McGuinness, and I still felt like I had a good time with this. And for once, you get to see somebody working with Spider-Man who annoys him as much as he annoys everyone else. There isn't much of an ongoing story, but the evolving plot thread is how these two learn to work together and become quite a formidable crime-fighting duo. The humour is as integral to the series as the action is, and it manages to avoid the pressures of the universe-spanning Marvel continuity. So if you wanted something a bit longer, but still varies it up so it keeps you guessing, then this would be a perfect jumping on point for you. But on the slim chance that you're not already a fan of Spider-Man and you're wondering where you can start, then I've already done a video on him. But maybe you want something even shorter than that and not have to worry about the continuity or even know that much about Deadpool in the first place. Then you can put your trust in the man himself, Mark fucking Wade. This 4-issue miniseries from 1994 came out at a time when they were still trying to figure out the character. It's not a crossover with another title, but it still has a lot to do with X-Force, who are a staple of this miniseries. But it also gave him his first real solo mission where he's put directly into the crosshairs of Juggernaut, who is honestly one of my favourite characters in the X-Men universe, so it should be no surprise that it's on the list. But it's just good 90s action fun, and it reads like a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie of that era. There's a secretive mastermind that's lurking in the shadows, Deadpool really wants to work alone but constantly finds himself relying on his allies, and there are more gunfights in this series than there are issues. So if you did want to take things back to the beginning, this would definitely be my recommendation, even if it isn't going to start you off at day one. Another one, and it might not be an obvious choice, but I'm going to go with Deadpool by Scotty Young. He's a name you probably know better for his art, but in 2018 he did a 15-issue series on Wade Wilson that may not be the very pinnacle of the character, but it is still a great introduction for new readers. Deadpool's had his memory wiped and went back to being a mercenary for hire, which is why if you don't know a lot about the Marvel universe at that time, you could jump into this and it's still fairly recent. Young doesn't do the art like you might expect, but there's still some great names that are working on here that really managed to keep the energy, like Nick Klein, who would eventually go on to work with Donny Cates on Thor. Although it ended too soon and it does feel quite rushed towards the end, there are still a good number of stories in here that would be a great introduction into Deadpool. There's some fun one-shot issues, a really surprising inclusion of Mephisto, and at the same time Young manages to bring in a longer narrative that's working in the background. So it's kind of got the best of both worlds, even if I don't think this is a top 5 story. But one that would definitely make it into the top 5 is Deadpool by Dugan and Posehn. I swear I'm trying my best to pronounce his name correctly, and I still don't know if I'm getting it right. Wacky is a word that I've used a lot already in this video, but these two, when they were working on Deadpool, seem to have the goal of taking that to a completely another level. Yet at the same time, if you're familiar with the Marvel universe prior to Hickman's Secret Wars, then this would be ideal for you, because it's basically a revolving door of daft stories, with Wade going up against an undead army of dead presidents, to fighting Dracula's army and then solving mysteries, battling other heroes from the Marvel universe, and there was never really a lull in this series for me. It does touch on stuff like the schism that was going on between the X-Men, Axis, Original Sin, and these two managed to do it in a way that you didn't feel like you were being left out if you hadn't read any of those stories. And this creative team also did a few mini-series on the character if you wanted to start with something shorter, and some of those mini-series aren't even included in this omnibus, which, you know, it's fine. Honestly, I didn't even really want them in there. Arguably though, the best work that Dugan did on Deadpool wasn't even part of his collaboration with Posehn. I still don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And now I don't even know if I'm saying Dugan right. In 2016, following Secret Wars, the title was relaunched with Gerry working back on the title again, and he dared to try and add a different layer to the Merc With A Mouth. But with Wade now basking in the approval of the public, it changes his perception of himself as a mercenary. But as intense and existential as that might sound, it still retains its signature humour, because it's got got time travel shenanigans, the introduction of the 2099 version of Deadpool, and the revenge of Medcap, which you might already know a bit about if you've watched my Marvel Iceberg video. This is also just a great middle-sized run as well, and from the first issue to the last you've got great action, whilst also forcing Wade into a position where he has to navigate the post-Secret Wars Marvel events. So if that was an era that you really liked, or you just want to run with a bit more depth and question if the life of a hero is one that he really wants to pursue, then if that's what you're looking for, this will be perfect for you. But before we jump into my last pick, I'm gonna go with an honourable mention, which is gonna be pretty much every series that I haven't already mentioned. Yep, I have not been on this planet long enough to read every single book that Deadpool's ever featured in, and I'm sure that there's gonna be some of them that I haven't read that would still be a great introduction for you. So explore, have a look around, check out a few starting issues and see what takes your fancy, because you might like the new ongoing series, or you might want to start at the beginning with Circle Chase, because it should go without saying that one of the first appearances of the character would make a great introduction. You've also got Secret Agent Deadpool, Deadpool's Secret Wars, Gwenpool, you've also got Deadpool Core, and there are so many titles out there that there's bound to be one that will interest you. So just because it's not on this list, it doesn't mean that it's not worth checking out, it's just that these are my personal recommendations. But for my final recommendation in this video, I'm gonna go with Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe. Let's be honest, the majority of people probably don't go towards a Deadpool book because they're looking for a metaphysical deconstruction of the character and to really understand who he is at the core and really challenge everything that you ever knew about him. You want action, goofiness, a balls to the wall pace. And if you also want to throw the Marvel Universe into that list, then why not watch him kill it? Written by Cullen Bunn and lasting for only 4 issues, so it's a really quick read if you did want to pick this up, and you get to see Wade at his most sadistic level. I read it in one sitting because it's such a great time and it doesn't really get bogged down with the continuity, yet for a unique look into the wacky yet depraved mind of Wade Wilson that won't take up too much of your time and will often make you feel guilty when you laugh at it, then this would get my highest recommendation, because at the end of the day, comics are supposed to be enjoyed. But whether you loved it or hated it, that's the video, and I had to rush this one out before I started work, so hopefully it hasn't been too choppy. But until next time, just make sure that you stay safe and stay mad, all you dogs. Woof woof. See you at the next video.